The applause echoed through the glass-walled headquarters as one decision changed hundreds of lives in a single afternoon. A respected single father quietly emptied his desk after being replaced by the chairman's own son, while smiling executives congratulated themselves on choosing bloodline over loyalty. No one noticed the tears hidden behind the father's calm expression. No one imagined that only 3 weeks later, the same company would be spiraling toward disaster, clients abandoning contracts, employees resigning by the dozens, and the people who pushed him out would desperately wish they had never let him walk away. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in this world, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community that believes every act of compassion can change a life. Graham Mercer had never imagined that raising a little girl alone would become the greatest challenge and greatest blessing of his life. 6 years earlier, he had stood outside a hospital holding newborn Avery while trying to accept the heartbreaking reality that he would be returning home without his wife. Every promise he made afterward centered on one simple goal. He would become the kind of father his daughter could always depend on, even if it meant sacrificing every dream he once carried for himself. He worked longer hours than anyone else, skipped vacations, refused promotions that required relocation, and devoted every spare moment to Avery. Every morning began before sunrise with breakfast, school preparation, and a warm hug that reminded his daughter she was never alone. Every afternoon ended with homework, laughter over simple dinners, and bedtime stories that always finished with hope overcoming hardship. At Crestline Manufacturing, Graham had become the quiet backbone of the company. He rarely sought recognition, but everyone knew that when impossible problems appeared, Graham somehow found practical solutions. Suppliers trusted him because he always kept his word. Employees respected him because he treated everyone with dignity, from custodians to senior executives. Customers stayed loyal because Graham believed relationships mattered more than quarterly reports. While others competed for attention, Graham quietly built trust one conversation at a time. The aging chairman, Cedric Holloway, admired Graham's work but carried one weakness that would eventually threaten everything he had built. He desperately wanted his only son, Preston Holloway, to inherit the business and prove worthy of the family legacy. Preston had earned expensive degrees and possessed endless confidence, yet he lacked patience, humility, and genuine leadership experience. Many executives privately worried that Preston measured success by appearances rather than people, but few dared challenge the chairman's hopes. One bright Monday morning, employees gathered for what they believed would be a routine leadership announcement. Instead, Cedric proudly introduced Preston as the company's new chief operations executive, explaining that fresh ideas and youthful energy would lead Crestline into the future. Then came the sentence that froze the entire room. Graham would be removed from operational leadership and reassigned before quietly leaving altogether, allowing Preston complete authority. The room fell painfully silent. Many employees lowered their eyes, unable to watch the injustice unfold. Graham simply nodded, thanked everyone he had worked beside for nearly 15 years, packed family photographs and a worn notebook filled with ideas, then walked toward the elevator without bitterness. Before leaving, he smiled at the receptionist who struggled to hide her tears and reminded her to keep believing in herself because difficult seasons never last forever. That afternoon Graham picked Avery up from school exactly as he always did. She noticed the small cardboard box resting beside him in the car and immediately understood something had changed. She asked whether everything was going to be okay. Graham smiled despite the ache in his heart and assured her that losing a job never meant losing purpose. He explained that sometimes life closed one door simply to remind people that their worth had never depended on a title. Avery quietly reached across the seat and held his hand for the rest of the drive home. Inside Crestline, Preston wasted no time proving he was in charge. He replaced experienced supervisors with personal friends who admired him instead of challenging his decisions. Long-standing supplier agreements were cancelled because he believed cheaper options would impress investors. Employee training budgets disappeared overnight. Customer service teams were reduced because spreadsheets suggested they were too expensive. Managers were instructed to stop questioning leadership and simply follow orders. Preston celebrated these decisions as bold reforms, never noticing the growing fear spreading through every department. The first week brought confusion. The second week brought frustration. The third week brought collapse. Production delays multiplied because cheaper materials repeatedly failed quality inspections. Major clients canceled contracts after promised delivery dates were missed. Experienced engineers resigned together, refusing to continue working under leadership that ignored expertise. Customer complaints flooded every department. Financial losses climbed with astonishing speed while Preston insisted everything remained under control. Cedric arrived at headquarters each morning expecting improvement but instead found more alarming reports waiting on his desk. The confidence he once carried slowly disappeared. For the first time in decades, the company he had devoted his life to building seemed genuinely vulnerable. Meanwhile, Graham accepted temporary consulting work for small family-owned businesses across the city. The pay was modest compared to his previous salary, but something unexpected happened. The owners appreciated his honesty more than expensive strategies. Graham helped struggling shops improve inventory systems, trained young supervisors with patience, and encouraged every employee he met. His reputation quietly spread throughout the business community. People described him not only as brilliant but trustworthy. Avery loved watching her father smile again. She noticed that although they spent less money, they laughed more often. Weekend picnics replaced expensive outings. Homemade pancakes became celebrations instead of ordinary breakfasts. Graham finally discovered that success measured by income had distracted him from appreciating the simple richness already surrounding him. Back at Crestline, panic reached every floor. One longtime supplier publicly ended its partnership after years of loyalty. Another demanded advance payment because trust had vanished. Investors questioned leadership during emergency meetings. Newspapers began publishing stories about the company's declining performance. Employees feared layoffs and searched for new opportunities elsewhere. Cedric finally requested independent reviews from senior managers who had remained silent for weeks. Their conclusions matched almost perfectly. Graham's departure had removed the person who quietly connected every department, solved conflicts before they became crises, and earned loyalty impossible to replace. His influence had never appeared fully on financial reports because it lived inside relationships, experience, and respect. Cedric spent an entire afternoon reading handwritten letters employees had submitted over the years praising Graham's leadership. One letter described how Graham personally covered medical expenses for an employee's child without ever telling anyone. Another explained how Graham cancelled an important meeting to attend the funeral of a warehouse worker's father because no manager should allow an employee to grieve alone. Another recalled how Graham voluntarily trained new hires during lunch breaks because he believed confident workers created stronger families. Cedric realized something painful. He had mistaken leadership for inheritance when true leadership had quietly been serving others all along. Pride fought against regret, but regret eventually won. Cedric drove across town during a bright afternoon to visit the modest office where Graham now worked. He expected resentment, anger, perhaps even satisfaction at Crestline's struggles. Instead, he found Graham patiently helping the owner of a small furniture company reorganize operations while laughing with employees over coffee. When the meeting ended, Cedric apologized more sincerely than he had ever apologized to anyone. He admitted that fear of disappointing his son had blinded him to the value of someone who had already proven his loyalty countless times. He confessed that replacing Graham had been the worst decision of his career. Graham listened quietly. He explained that forgiveness was easier when people accepted responsibility instead of making excuses. He held no hatred toward Cedric because carrying bitterness would only steal joy from Avery's life. However, returning to Crestline could never simply be about restoring his old position. The company needed more than one employee. It needed a different culture. Cedric agreed without hesitation. The following morning Graham returned, not with demands, but with conditions centered entirely on people rather than power. Experienced employees would be invited back with genuine respect. Training programs would be restored. Frontline workers would participate in improvement meetings. Decisions affecting customers would involve the teams who actually served them every day. Leadership would once again become something earned instead of inherited. Some executives resisted. Most employees applauded. Even those who had considered resigning decided to stay long enough to see whether change was truly possible. Preston watched these developments with wounded pride. For days he blamed everyone except himself. Then something unexpected happened. While walking through the production floor, he overheard two employees discussing Graham. Neither spoke about profits or strategies. They simply described how Graham remembered birthdays, encouraged struggling co-workers, and treated every person with respect regardless of position. For the first time, Preston understood what had been missing all along. He had spent his life believing authority created respect when, in reality, character created trust. Rather than defending himself further, Preston requested a private meeting with Graham. He admitted he had confused confidence with competence and admitted he had never truly listened to the people doing the work every day. Graham did not humiliate him. Instead, he invited Preston to spend several weeks learning every department from the ground up, working beside technicians, drivers, receptionists, warehouse staff, and customer support teams. Those weeks transformed Preston more deeply than any executive seminar ever could. He learned how difficult ordinary jobs truly were. He discovered that every delayed shipment affected real families waiting for income. He saw experienced employees solving problems with creativity no spreadsheet could measure. Slowly, arrogance gave way to humility. Months later, Crestline Manufacturing celebrated something far greater than recovered profits. Customers returned because promises were once again kept. Former employees came back because they trusted leadership. Investors regained confidence because stability had replaced chaos. Cedric announced publicly that future promotions would depend on demonstrated service, integrity, and capability rather than family connections. During the annual company gathering held beneath the warm afternoon sun outside headquarters, Cedric stood before every employee and openly acknowledged his mistake. He thanked Graham for choosing forgiveness instead of revenge and reminded everyone that organizations rarely collapse because one person leaves. They collapse when people forget the value of those who quietly hold everything together. Graham looked across the crowd and spotted Avery proudly waving from the front row after school. She smiled with the same quiet confidence he had tried to teach her every day since she was born. In that moment he realized the greatest victory had never been reclaiming his position. It had been showing his daughter that dignity survives unfairness, kindness outlasts pride, and forgiveness builds stronger futures than resentment ever could. Before we reach the end of this story, leave a meaningful comment sharing the lesson that touched your heart the most. Have you ever seen someone underestimated until their absence revealed their true value? Your words may encourage someone facing a difficult season today. As the afternoon sunlight stretched across the company courtyard, Graham took Avery's hand and walked forward with peace in his heart. He had lost a title but found an even greater purpose. Cedric regained wisdom by admitting failure. Preston discovered that true leadership begins with listening instead of commanding. An entire company learned that loyalty, compassion, and humility are strengths no family name can ever replace. Their story became a lasting reminder that the strongest foundations are built not by power or privilege, but by ordinary people who choose integrity every single day. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind you that kindness is never wasted, forgiveness can restore what pride destroys, and hope always finds a way to rise again when good people refuse to give up.